Hey guys, it's me video 7 for the how to restore a vintage Goldtop Les Paul. This one's a 71, and I'm doing this restoration in tandem with another vintage Gibson. It's a 69. Sorry I dropped that little stud in there, but I've got to talk about this stud here in a moment, so I need to put it where I see it. So there's a possibility I may be changing the title of this particular series to how to do a 59 conversion, because that's kind of the direction that we started taking with this guitar when we converted it over to the small headstock, the 17-degree pitch. This was 1 in 23 32 inch nut location, which would have been vintage correct. Still mounting at the 16th fret with a what Gibson calls a 24 3/4 inch scale, but it's actually 24 and 5/8. It's 24.625, I believe, is the thousandths number, 625 thousandths. So, but what started taking place as all this started going back together is if you're following the series, you know that we were very much concerned about if we do any work. Let me get a pointer because I'm going to need a pointer for certain in this video. If we do any sort of route work, what is the maximum point of that line, that, this point, blah, 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 and on, and should we come in here and route out material on this side? And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this video, because I'm going to be driving home the importance of actually 2 to 3 weeks of thought, often known as I would put the guitar on the table and get late at night and do some engineering and think about layout and scale, and most importantly, that location right there, how it defines absolutely everything, even where this neck got glued in or where all of this got notched and stuff like that. Every bit of that was based on that single location right there, because that's historically accurate, and I don't want to be fooling with that. Okay, I've already covered this in past videos, but I just want you to see the importance of making certain that you stay on point. And once you start doing a restoration, always, well, if anything, always work from that point, especially if it's a historically accurate guitar, because that point right there defines the whole guitar, the whole scale. Some of you know that, some of you don't know the importance of that. But the reason I say that one, because this one, of course, as well, but see, these are on a pitch, and my speaking length scale is determined by the center of that location, actually in front of that location. So once I had that point, once we came to the realization that Chip thought it was a good idea, yeah, let's just go ahead and convert this over to like a 59 conversion with a 17-degree pitch headstock, 1 in 23 32 inch nut width. Gibson would have considered themselves very lucky if they had have had a piece of Honda mahogany as beautiful as that, the flamed. And I've said it before, I just want to drive home to you guys. I don't know if you can see what I see, but it's off the charts, man. So that's about as rare as it comes. But anyway, they would have considered themselves very fortunate if any of their mahogany looked like that. But ours did, and still does. So once I started getting ready to do the machine work and put it all back together, that's when I began to realize that either I'm going to just leave this the way it is, the way it was just kind of, I'm going to call it butchered up, because it was butchered up pretty bad. Somebody had basically just chiseled out. In case you're not aware, someone had just taken a chisel and hand chiseled the I'm going to call it the P90 location. I know it's not a P90 guitar, but it has the P90 surround. So, if you hear me say P90, 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 I mean a P90 surround with a mini humbucker in the middle. That's what would have been in this guitar, because it's a 71. But since it was starting from the P90 surround location, someone had converted it to a humbucker, they had just chiseled back to about right there. Let's see, what am I looking at? Yeah, see, I routed off about a little more than 1/8 of an inch, but they had chiseled out. I'm sorry, let me think. Let me make that Yeah, I routed off exactly 1/8 of an inch. They had chiseled out, roughly uh, close to 1/8 of an inch, but it was only sufficient to receive a humbucker without a cover. And what's a little bit, almost didn't want to do this video because there's some sort of an illusion where I got to tell you, I was even triple checking, quadruple checking. Are you sure that's where you want to route that? Because it kept visually, looking like it was too much. But in that case, if you are spooked, then you need to be working from an actual humbucker in an authentic 59 spec surround while you're fitting everything, which is exactly what I did. So what it prompted was couldn't really obviously change this location because of the end of the binding. That's kind of defined, and the end of the binding will also dictate where the 16th fret location was, and on and on and on that location. But once, as I mentioned, once I had this location right here and this 16th fret location, a body that I did not want to change, didn't need to be changed or anything, but a fretboard, a guitar neck lower that was a certain length, then I knew it was up to me to determine how much of this I want to route out back here and get cleaned up. And as Chip agreed on the front end, he's like, well, if we are going to do this work, now's the time to do it when the fretboard is off. And yeah, about 99%. I definitely agree with you about 99%, but there are still ways that it could have been done even after the guitar was finished. But I think it's a little bit easier to do it while it was just a husk. So it did just that, and I'll talk about the templates in a moment because I know I'll be talking about the variation between the 59 Stuart McDonald template for humbuckers versus the mid 50s Stuart McDonald template for the P90s or the P90 surround. Because the locations, if in case I forget, which I don't think I would forget, but this wall right here, that location is consistent on both guitars, the P90 versus the humbucker, because of, as I just clarified, the end of the actual fretboard or the end of the binding. But wherein the almost Greek tragedy, if you're not careful, lies is that width right there from the inside of the pickup surround to the outside of the pickup surround uh, would would make one realize that attempted to do a conversion, they would very quickly realize, oh wow, it's not just a matter of routing out more opening back here, because and I did not want to take Jerome's P90 cover and use it as a sample. I just don't want to do that, and plus I got it mocked up. But nonetheless, oh yeah, I did get my cardboard template out here. But if this is my P90, the P90 will virtually go all the way up against the actual fretboard of the guitar and be very much okay. But once you put a humbucker in there, that humbucker gets, the physical humbucker itself gets shifted considerably, because not only is it wider, but you also add the width of that pickup surround dimension, because it has to go up against the fretboard. And I know a lot of you guys are thinking, well, yeah, well, everybody knows that. But the problem is you don't think of the importance of that until you've possibly already gotten your router out and you realize that, well, wait a minute, I routed this thing the proper um, width, whatever that width is. I think it's 42 millimeter, give or take. But then you realize that once you get your fretboard up there, it's not going to fit, because of that width right there on that right side is pushing you back a good eighth of an inch. So therein created the issue of, I was kind of planning on just doing the fillet work in either corner, but I realized it's just not gonna work. I'm going to have to do fillet work right here as well, and fill in the very original P90 location that was about close to a 16th of an inch further in this direction up here. So I wish there's some way I could explain this, but I can't hold this and this pointer and this guitar and hold it perfectly in the camera until I get it glued, everything glued together. Then I'll be able to show it to you. But I just wanted to do this video so that you'll begin to realize that if you are going to do some sort of a P90 to humbucker conversion on a guitar like this, you plan on routing out a substantial amount of material back here, and just know that your pickup surround, once it gets pushed back, it is definitely going to create almost a 1/16 of an inch void up here. And what I mean by this is if the fretboard is obviously already glued down, is already in place, which you can only hope and pray that that's your situation, because that's a lot less work if you're already at that point. But again and again, I can't hold it in the right location. But with this build, I was able to, just like I did with Jerome's guitar, I was able to cheat on it from 3 different points here. The pickup positioning, I'm just going to call it the pickup surround positioning, exaggerating of course, as well as the end of the fretboard location in relation to the 16th fret. So in essence, what has happened with this guitar, in order to maintain this historically accurate scale, I was able to push the fretboard that direction, and I'm not exaggerating here, only about a 32nd of an inch. That's what is a 32nd of an inch? That's like 1/2 of a 16th. That's so minimal that it's not even that big of a deal to even mention. But it is just enough to allow you to have just a hairline, well, a 1/32 of an inch shelf across there, in order to receive the very edge of the pickup surround. You don't want the pickup, you don't want there to be a gap, of course, but you especially don't want the pickup surround falling down into the body and stuff like that. Now back here, once I made this route back here, basically that route back here is exactly in line with, I'm sorry, let me make sure I'm pointing to the right thing. Exactly on point with that edge right there. So in other words, as the flat comes across, as soon as it turns the corner, in other words, it's nowhere near gapping back here, where it's really, really important. I could have pushed the pickup in that direction another 1/16 of an inch, and it would have been right at the threshold. It would have been really close. So I say that to say that, Chip, you got a lot of, you're going to have a lot of real estate up under the back of that pickup surround once it goes on the body, a full 1/16 of an inch. So what does that equate to? Once this thing gets heated a little bit and bowed up, it's going to have plenty of material up under it to help it bow properly. Okay. So, and I wish there's some way I could, show that, but I will be able to once the guitar is built and finished and put together and all that stuff. But I didn't want to fool with this pickup location here until I address that. And let's see if I can hold it now that I'm not holding the pointer anymore, and just because see, I have not pinned this fretboard yet, meaning I haven't drilled a 16th inch drill bit location here and roughly up here at the 18th fret location, which is typically drilling right here at the 18th and right here at the 1st fret. But let me just see if I can hold it real close. And you'll see right now, that's not the gap I want. The gap I want, it's going to be slid back just a little bit, where I can just barely catch my fingernail on that. And what will that define? Or what is that defined by? The very initial engineering line. This point right here. See, that's the beginning. See that dark? I hope you can see that dark line. That's the beginning of the fretboard. Because you might look at that and think, well, wait a minute, does the nut location start right here? And the answer to that is no. Should have had the nut out. Let me get this out. This is pretty important to help you help you see my reasoning. Not as organized as I thought it was. But we're gonna go with it. Because this is the third time I've done this video. I'm not doing it again. Okay, so you would think, okay, well, was that the beginning of the nut location? No, actually the nut will get cut up in here about another 1/8 of an inch probably, or whatever the difference is to make up for that. Now, obviously, if you're planning on going, well, if you're doing like a Floyd Rose for some strange reason on a guitar like this, when you built your lower, you would have wanted to build your lower about 1/4 of an inch longer up in this location, well above that line, because that would have received your Floyd Rose nut, locking nut. If you're doing the locking nut, that is literally, I think it's like a 1/2 inch wide. It's enormous, and you wouldn't want that going out if you're really splitting hairs. I don't know why I brought up the Floyd Rose. Just talking about nut locations, or let's say you were building your guitar and you got in a bit of a issue, but you were planning on using a nut that was considerably wider than that. Well, then you could just make up for your mistake by going with a more narrow nut. Okay. And I'm beginning to realize how heavy these Les Pauls are by holding them. Let me get a grip back on it, or let me get a grip again, and make certain that I cover basically what I'm doing here. I don't know if it's going to show up or not. I'll do the best I can. But if you look at the 16th, let me put it where it needs to be, because I don't want it to create some sort of optical illusion. And it looked like it's off 1/8 of an inch. And if I didn't clarify it, Chip, the 16th fret location is within about 1/32 of an inch of where it kind of would have been. So I'm right at the threshold there. I'm right at the 16th fret location right there. And then once I come up here and cut off that black overlay to receive the nut, we'll have a 59 Les Paul basically. And it's really beautiful. And I appreciate you talking me into using this vintage fretboard. And it wasn't nearly as a nightmare to work with as I was worried it was going to be. And this is the first time I've ever done the Tortoloid. I would do it again. It turned out really well. I might talk about that some, but I still have a lot of shaping to do on that and some buffing and sanding. I've taken this up to, I think, 600 grit buff work, but I've still got some buff work to do there. And when you are working on that, just keep everything blue taped off, like painter's tape, and then work, scrape, sand, work, scrape, sand, buff, sand, buff, sand. And then as you see your blue tape beginning to get chewed up a little bit, replace your blue tape, keep sanding it, buffing it with like 600, 800 grit, and then until you see your sandpaper, the blue tape begin to show up on your sandpaper, like your handheld sandpaper, then you know you're getting close enough to do a video and at least talk about it, but it's still not finished because I'm catching my fingernail just a little bit right there. Let's see if I can do an image for the screenshot. Let's see what does the background look like. I'll try to capture the guitar because this is really, really beautiful. I wish there's some way to hold that fretboard without my hand being in the way. This is a really stunning guitar, and I don't think that's Brazilian rosewood, but I may be wrong. I'm glad I'm looking at this. This is the only thing that spooked me. And I'm not going to throw it under the bus, but look how thin that binding is right there. Fretboard, I don't know if that came from the factory that way. I would say it probably did, but this fretboard is extremely thin. And what that's going to create is the top of the pickup is probably going to have to be below the top of the pickup ring, which that's kind of normal. But when I build my own fretboards, they're about a 32nd of an inch thicker than this one right here. It gives you a little bit more binding. It gives you just a little bit more center. It gives you a little bit more height. And fortunately, we'll be going with like a medium jumbo frets, so that'll be a little bit taller, and it should be fine. But I know beyond a shadow of a doubt the pickup that will be installed, if it has a cover, which he said he was going with pickups with covers, uh, it'll probably be 100% flush, or it'll be below the pickup ring in order to get it to intonate properly and to play properly as well. So there something about this guitar I always kind of struggled at. They're very low profile, and that's one thing I learned about Eric's SG. Eric's SG is a good 16th of an inch taller. None of the Les Pauls are taller though. They just might have a little bit thicker fretboard. So anyway, even though it's got all this real pronounced arch top, it can get a little bit low right in this area right here in relation to the magnets and the pole pieces in the pickup and the draw on the strings. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so let me check the time and see. Where are we? 31 minutes, I believe. I'm gonna try to keep this a really short video because I'm not even certain this is a video that I can even pull off, because there's so much technical stuff I need to talk about that if I really dive in deep, it sounds like I'm bitching about it, or if I don't dive in deep enough, it sounds like I'm not paying enough attention to it. So with that said, let me just kind of pick back up and just clarify. I'm not complaining, but obviously it has been a bit of a bear. But once I got this location defined, then I knew it was time to determine, am I going to be routing out 3/16 of an inch material up here to get this location under control? Because I always knew that when they did their cowboy conversion on this guitar, they should have been chiseling up here. Man, oh man, if they had have chiseled up here, that would have been awesome. But the fact that they chiseled back here, they moved I'll go ahead and just use the larger humbucker ring. They moved the humbucker considerably closer to the bridge than it would have ever been on any era guitar. So I knew from a standpoint of converting this guitar back to, obviously a double humbucker guitar was one thing, but to convert it back to a guitar that was designed by Gibson per certain specifications and certain locations, I knew it was going to be easy to pull that one off, but I wanted to make certain this one didn't end up being a quarter of an inch lower than it really needed to be, or either we were getting ready to have to route up into this a quarter of an inch and then do major fill work back here. So I'm going to go straight to the finish line and say this, Chip. I'm going to talk about these templates as soon as I get through talking about this. This 1,000-foot view right now is this. This carpentry work that they did right here is not perfectly straight. It's on an angle like this, and that's okay. But the location that they hit down here is about 1/32 of an inch beyond a fairly comfortable location for this humbucker to be in. So in other words, where it really needs to be placed is it needs to be placed to where the humbucker ring here is literally just barely catching any material right here that they did leave in, but then there would be a bit of a gap back here. So my plans for this, there's my little piece of mahogany, my piece of maple. I've got a little piece, make sure that's not leaning on a funky angle. Oh, here's, yeah. See, I've got a little piece of maple here that I've been using to machine, like I would radius off the edge and then machine with a 1/4 inch flute spiral bit to do these little corner cuts right there, and then epoxy them in, one on one side, one on the other. I won't have to do that down here, but I will be doing it in this location right here, and then in this location right here. So I'll be doing 2 in that corner right there, but 90 well, probably 80% of it will probably get routed away, but I've got to have that material there in that corner so that the blue tape that you see, that is the actual line that will become the route line. So the route line will stop right there. So what I'm saying is I only need to take off about 1/8 of an inch right here, and in order to get the humbucker in the correct location per Gibson specs, per the bridge, so that once you toggle down to the bridge pickup, it's going to sound like a Les Paul. It's not going to sound really, really bright because the pickup is too close to the bridge, is where I'm going with this. Okay, so a long way around me saying that I have literally spent weeks off and on. Well, we addressed this 3.5, 4 weeks. Well, no, it was probably a month and a half ago when I first addressed that, and I realized, oh shit, man, we're gonna have to come in and reroute both of these, and then we got to make the determination of, well, do we want to take the chance of routing into a 55-year-old body? And the more I thought about it, it's like, we don't have any choice. Now, I'm not saying I wasn't qualified or I was scared to do it. I wasn't scared to do it, but it was just like, oh no, it's one more thing you got to do, that if you sneeze, yes, you can screw up. But but I didn't sneeze, and everything worked out really well up there. But I've got this little piece of maple, and it's really cool. This was my dad's miter box from like Ace Hardware from like back in the 70s. So, I used this on Rick's 1980 Les Paul Custom as well, where we replaced the top. I butchered up Dad's little handheld miter box. So this is some, what would this be, 70? Well, it's about the same age as this guitar. And it might have been that Ace Hardware and Gibson were buying maple together. So this is 55-year-old maple that will be getting epoxied in right here, only to fill the location in so that I route 98% of it back out. I just don't want to do that. I don't want to just route off a little bit of material over here or leave that nasty work in there, even if it will receive. I haven't tried this yet. It may receive it. See, it's got a lot of crap. I don't think it will receive it, but of course it won't because of that right there. So anyway, it's pretty close, and the fact that it's sticking way up out of the body probably could get away with a lot less drama than what I'm presenting here. But I know right now that pickup would not be adjustable. So it's got to be routed out properly, machined out properly. But rather than just taking advantage of this chisel work back here that might have been done by Dickie Bat, or was it Dickie Batts? Is that the guy's name? That there was a possibility this guitar was owned by him because it came from South Florida, and Chip told me the story about it. It's really, really intriguing. But who knows? Who knows? That would have been really cool. And I actually did some research before I started restoring this guitar to see if I saw any pictures of Dickie possibly playing this guitar. But I didn't see anything, Chip. And I know you and I we didn't talk about that. But if I had have seen something like that and determined that, yeah, maybe Dickie's the one that did that chisel work, I don't know, we might have left that in there. But I say we epoxy fill that in, and then let me machine it off properly, and then definitely machine out this front up here. And then there'll be these two little ears in each corner that'll look a little bit like that, but not nearly as much maple here as what's up here. But then once she gets the pickup ring over it, it'd be a beautiful guitar. And so I say all that to say this: you won't see any. If you look real close, you might see a little bit of you'll see a little bit of discoloration in the chip out, in the fleek out in the top. But I'm going to leave that to you, Chip, for you to touch up. However, per your request, because you mentioned mixing the powder and all that jazz, and again, I don't want to get involved in that stuff. However, up here, what I do plan on doing is any work that I do plan on creating my own very very uh, amber gold color that looks far more like that right there. And any work that I've done up in here, I do plan on painting every bit of that gold, so that you'd really have to know what you were looking for to realize that anybody had done the conversion, is what I'm saying. And there's any maple work that I do up here. I'm going to test my ability as a pro painter, stainer guy, and see just how close I can match these colors in this maple to this old vintage top. It doesn't matter because it's all under the pickup ring anyway. But once it comes to any material that is outside of the pickup ring chip, I'm like that real where all that lacquer is chipped off and you see the old dark sweaty wood. I'm not going to touch that. I'll leave that in place. There is a screw hole right there, and there's a pretty nasty little corner hole there. I definitely plan on patching that. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. Never mind. Never mind. I'm sorry. No, yeah, I think this one is going to show. So I definitely will be patching the one on the corner, but once I get it all put together, then we'll make the determination of whether you want me to fill one of these holes right here with my vintage, and it will look basically identical to that right there. But please understand, read between the lines. I'm not trying to say that I want to start presenting to you, hey, let me touch that up. I don't want to touch that even for our conversation. The only thing I did do is I put a little bit of water in that a long time ago, a month ago, and it did close up. So this body was probably just extremely, extremely dried out. So by saturating that a little bit with some water, it closed up. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and do this route work, because if I don't do this route work, Chip, which I know you weren't considering not doing. I know we both agreed that I was going to go ahead and do this work before I glue the fretboard down. Uh, I'll definitely will be routing up in here, and then routing in here as well, but only after I get the vintage. And it's actually quarter sewn as well. It's actually like a ripped sewn. So if you were to look at it, you would see that it was ripped sewn. However, I have the plans to just do all the gold paint work in there, basically just to match this right here as well, because you can see where it has the old gold on the side of the maple there. We all know that's, and I know Chip knows, because Chip owns a music store that he's been in the music business forever. And I'm not sure if I had mentioned it. I don't think he would mind, but Chip said that he had done some tech work for Joe Walsh once, or some for a while. So I thought that was really cool. So hope you don't mind me mentioning that, Chip. But he owns a music store, and he's been around these things for quite a while. So in other words, any touch-up work I do in here, it won't just be gold out of the bottle. It'll be like a really old amberish gold, vintage. We'll call it vintage amber gold. Not this. I will not dare touch any of the original. Oh, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video. Also, if you haven't fallen asleep yet, Chip, do you want me to leave this little ledge here, or do you want me to route it down flush with this line right here? And then I really at that point would kind of need to do every bit of the floored gold because it would be difficult to blend the two. It's just that's when I started the video. That line right there represents the original 70s, 71 route location for the P90 surround. You know, that location right there. So obviously you and I both know that wall would have come all the way up to the top here. And then when they did their chisel work, they left, there was about a little over an eighth of an inch ledge over here that was really rough. You could see it in the early pictures. But then once I did my machine work back, I took it back, and then I took it a little bit deeper just to make certain it was cleaned up. If you want, when I do my gold paint work, I can just paint what you see or I can machine this floor flush, and then I might be pretty good at blending the two of them. And again, Chip's probably sitting there thinking, "What the hell does it matter, man? It's going to be covered up with a pickup, blah blah blah." It's just that I'm kind of particular that way, but I want the client, I want the owner to let me know whether they care or not. And if Chip said, "I don't care, man, do whatever you want to do," um, I probably will just paint it how it is. Because if anything, it's kind of cool. It shows where the original P90 location was. And based on that, I'm kind of answering my own question. In the event anyone ever wanted to convert this back to a P90 location by P90 surround or an authentic P90, that line right there would define where they need to do their new fillet work and stop. So I just kind of answer my own question. If you're cool with it, I'll just leave it in there, Chip. If you want, I'll flush it with the bottom. But where I'm going to see, I did not change this radius right here in this corner, nor did I change this radius here, even though it's kind of butchered up a little bit. And then these could be just routed out, machined off if necessary. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but anyway, kind of splitting hairs here. And again, you realize how heavy a Les Paul is when you try to hold it with one hand, like a pizza tray. So, but that I definitely want to clean that up and get that under control, even though it's going to be covered up, and even get routed out a little bit. Now this I will have to route down, and but not nearly as much, because see, this pickup is much higher up in the pickup surround. Okay, now I'm kind of just thinking out loud. All right, let me check the time. And I'll try to talk about these templates for about 10 minutes, and then that ought to clarify what it is I'm talking about here. Check the time. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I should have opened the video with this right here. This would have. I may redo this video. Can't even pick that thing up, because this is how I should have opened the video. I did open the video talking about the importance of that location, the absolute importance of that location. But what's a little bit strange is in relation to the 59 template, Stuart McDonald template in my hand, that location would be a little bit further that way. I'm not going to start fighting that all that much, but I do know that you can see the blue tape right there. That's what I meant by we're so close with the 59 Stuart McDonald template that we're very safe to just route out that very small amount. And then once we install that pickup, we've got the bridge pickup in the correct location. But what took place up here is because it originally was a P90, it's just a little bit further in that direction for the neck pickup, but not enough to bring the neck in and stuff like that, a 32nd of an inch, and start doing fillet work up here. That would be kind of silly and absurd. We're really close with that. Okay. And also you can tell by these locations here, see, that's perfectly in center with the actual stud locations for the tailpiece. So that shows you what a 59 Les Paul would be in relation to both stud locations, whether this is a 71 or you name it. And I don't think I've already covered this in this particular video, but by having both of these templates, the humbucker versus the P90, I'm able to let me just keep it consistent. Okay, see, that's the actual bridge location. the treble side bridge location. So when you swing those over, put this on the center line, what happens is exact same location. What happens down here, don't let this deceive you, because the P90, the authentic P90 bridge location for the 55 guitar was considerably closer to the bridge than this actual guitar. And I did not misspeak. By the time they got to 68, 69, and started putting the P90 back in it, they meet, or at least I think the 68 did have the 68 and 69 did have the actual P90 pickup, but they had moved it forward considerably. We're talking probably 3/8 of an inch. It was probably way too bright. And as I had covered in Jerome's past video, this same analysis, it just came, it hit me. I got thinking, I thought, man, who were they competing against? They were competing against Telecaster and Fender, the Telecaster, where they might have been trying to achieve a really bright, twangy sound. So who knows? They might have intentionally took that P90 a little bit closer in because they were getting those pole pieces, closer to the bridge. But then they realized, nah, we don't want that sound. I don't know. I've never heard anybody talk about this, but I do know that this template is per 55 specs or 50 specs. But this guitar, these two this P90 and that P90 location are identical, but the 71 P90 location, the 68, 69 and own P90 location or P90 surround location got moved that direction. And that's what I meant by if we had not have wanted to route it up into the body right there, we would have been forcing the humbucker into more of like the P90 location in the 50s, and I don't know what that would have sounded like. I think it would have been a horrific disaster. And since I'm up here doing all this route work and cleanup work, crap, I can't hold anything. I'm only taking out 1/8 of an inch up here, so, and it's going to turn it into an authentic, 59 specs, 68, 70 specs, probably 80 specs, historical specs, and even current specs. So I hope that makes sense. And by having these Stuart McDonald templates, it really allowed me to, and I determined this stuff years ago, probably about 4 to 5 years ago. That's when it hit me, when I plugged that single point right there, and I realized that was the variation. They were working off the end of the fretboard, regardless of whether it was the P90 the P90 cover or the humbucker ring, pickup ring. And that's why I started the video talking about that pickup ring, because it really just boiled down to, where's the 16th fret location? It's right there. It's right on the edge of the body. That 16th fret, that point, the scale defined everything. So they couldn't change that wall right there, but they could certainly change how they routed back here or within that area to receive different pickups. But they definitely elected to move the P90 forward, and I'm looking at 3/8 of an inch minimum, if not more. But the humbucker location appears to have always stayed in that location right there. Okay, and had I not had these P90, had I not had these Stuart McDonald templates, I wouldn't have had the actual template in hand that I could have assessed projects as they came across my table, is what I'm saying. So I don't think there's really anything else to talk about. And see, I could go into the whole realm of even where's the screw location for humbucker pick guard versus the P90 pick guard, and see, there's the dimension right there. That's the thickness of the. I guarantee you that's the thickness of the pickup ring right there. Okay, so isn't it amazing how they didn't want to change this screw location or this pick guard's location because of this curvature, this footprint, even this footprint back here didn't change. Although now don't let this deceive you because this little Chinese knockoff is inaccurate. This actually is supposed to go back another 3/16 of an inch, and that's one of those things where I was talking about how if you were to buy this off eBay for $5, you'd be all excited right up to the point to where you you put it on your guitar and you realize that that's where the bridge pickup is supposed to be, and it literally is. So, but you might get deceived thinking that your bridge pickup is supposed to go right here, and that's what I was talking about. How and do they engineer these stupid items into these pick guards or these items? And I'd say yes, they do. Okay, so there you have it. I had no intention of talking about that, but you can't change that location right there because of the whole curvature and the design of the guitar. But if you've got a really good pick guard that's trustworthy, then that will help you engineer your job, or at least assess the difference between the P90 and the humbucker. Okay. And looking at the table, the next thing that will happen, I'm about to pin this fretboard in those two locations, and then I'm going to be gluing this fretboard down with a tight bind chip, and she'll be ready to fret here pretty soon. And then this will guarantee a really beautiful job. And Jerome's, I did Jerome's a couple of nights ago. It's actually hanging over here on my left, but I'll show it in the next video. It's really, really beautiful. It turned out really well. But I didn't want to get the two guitars crossed over too much. But I didn't want to, well, I could not glue this fretboard down, which I could have glued this fretboard down a week and a half ago, but I knew that I didn't know exactly where I wanted that location. And I did not want to come up here and shorten the length of the wood right here in order to bring the binding in any further, just because if you want to know the truth, I didn't want to, because this was vintage correct, and I wasn't relocating anything in that respect. And also there's part of me, I was kind of scared to put it on the miter saw and cut off a 32nd of an inch and risk the thing just tearing apart and fleeking really bad. But that might be something you'll have to do if you do this conversion, because the more I look at it, it's like, wow, there's a lot more that you need to do in order to get that under control. Before you do that, I swap out from a P90 to a humbucker. And in case I know I talked about doing the gold paintwork, but what I'll do here in the neck, I'll actually clear coat the neck with nitrocellulose lacquer, first off to show that it's true beautiful Honduran, but also it'll show the quarter sawn grain or the wrist sawn grain or whatever the grain is on the neck, and I just like doing that. But for the most part, I do know this is like the trunk, or this is under the hood. It doesn't have to be all that beautiful. But wherever I did this fillet work, that will be epoxy filled in and cleaned up and sanded and shaped a little bit, so that once I do brush all of my vintage gold in there, that you won't really be able to tell that it wasn't original, unless you're just really a pro tech and you know what to look for. Okay, so I think I gave you enough information there. Just let me know what you want to do there. And I don't know if I showed this or not. This is really cool. Once I did this machine work, it showed a really beautiful piece of rock maple right there. And then you could see the little divider maple strip there in the middle. You know, there's a little divider maple strip here. And then there's your mahogany up under that. Very dark piece of mahogany. I'm not so certain that's Honduran. That might be African. I'm not sure. it's not the heaviest Les Paul I've ever held, but it's certainly not the lightest. So this might be African mahogany, but nonetheless, I remember the tap tones. I'm not holding it properly, but and plus this is here we go. That's heaven. If you can pull that off in your guitar, yeah, that's gonna sound incredible. All right, so I appreciate you guys dropping in. I'm gonna watch the video and see if it was worthy of being uploaded. If you're watching it, I kind of feel like it's just barely worthy, and I apologize if I just went off on too many tangents. But that was kind of there was a lot going on there to get that under control, and I had to finally get to this point where I realized, well, what the hell do I want to do? Be afraid of the guitar and not route that and put that bridge pickup in the wrong location and not say anything, or just go ahead and do all the layout and realize if we're gonna go this far, let's go ahead and go a little bit further and route it out and put it in the correct location. And I didn't even contact Chip on that and let him know, because I know in video 3 I had mentioned, hey, let me know if you're okay with me routing that. But the more I thought about it, it's like, hell, Chip hired me because he trusted me to make those judgment calls, and so that once the strings go on this baby, it sounds like a vintage Les Paul. It feels like a vintage Les Paul, and it reacts once you plug it into whatever amp it is that you're playing as well. So shake the table here. I already talked about that little jig in past videos, but you got to have a really good jig for assuring that you keep your fretboard under control. In case I didn't forget, Chip, this neck did get glued in with a tight bind, and just worked out really, really good. And you heard the tap tones; they sounded really good. Would it have sounded better with epoxy? I don't know. It might have. It's irrelevant, because if it did get damaged, this would be a lot easier to remove. But I definitely want to also glue the fretboard down with the tight bind. And that's exactly how I did Jerome's guitar. I glued his fretboard down with tight bind, even though I epoxied the lower into his body. Okay, so I appreciate you guys dropping in. And if you got any questions or comments, just let me know. I'll do what I can. And I'm looking at the table here, and I see a ton of things that I could talk about, but I don't really see the point. So I'll end the video there and see you guys in the next one.